Welcome to Act 2 You're On. Join us weekly at our studio roundtable as Rhonda, Kate, and Linda invite spectacular guests to weigh in on staying sexy, vibrant, and healthy. Launch your next great act with authenticity and purpose. Summon your courage, superstar, and step into the limelight. So grab a coffee
or a martini
and let's set the stage for a grand entrance. It's Act 2. You're on.
Greetings, friends. I'm Linda Ty, and I have the great pleasure of podcasting today with my dynamic A2YO co-hosts,
Rhonda Garvin Conaway. And I'm Kate Levy.
So we are so excited today to have Willard here with us, Willard Barth, in our studio today. I feel very fortunate because I have met Willard through a program he's a faculty member of with Lisa Lieberman Wang, Find to Fab. I've also been very fortunate to be part of a beta accountability goal setting group that Willard led when he was writing his best-selling book, The Anatomy of Transformation. And Willard is very serious about transformation and commitment to what we say we want. So I would say Willard is very intense and he's very kind and generous. And so I was a little nervous to be on his accountability group because I didn't want to, disappoint. But it was very, very powerful. The way he got everyone to connect with each other was amazing. Willard lives a life transformed. He speaks not from theory, but from the school of hard knocks, as they say. He has personally lived through, practiced, and achieved all that he is teaching us that we can do, be, and have. He has experienced more challenges than most have faced and has found a way to turn them around, and now you can too. So to our listeners, before I give you a little background on Willard, questions to ask yourself: if I were going to assess my life and business, am I where I imagined I would be right now? Is there an area of my life that I have a sense that I need to change, but I'm not quite certain yet what that is? And do I feel sometimes like something is either missing or needs to be different and I want it to happen now, not later? Well, you are in for a treat because Willard is the exact person you want to be listening to right now. So a little bit about him. Willard Barth is known around the world as a keynote speaker, business consultant, and transformation expert, and #1 best-selling author. He is the founder of 4 successful companies, including an entertainment company, a marketing company, as well as Willard Barth Enterprises, and co-founder of the N.A.P Coaching Academy. Additionally, he is a successful singer-songwriter. His first album, Coming Home, enjoyed international success, with the first single, Wind Dancer, reaching number 24 on the pop charts overseas. He has also performed over 100 times on Broadway with the legendary Les Paul. 3 decades ago, he made a decision that changed his life, and it was the principles he applied then that he is teaching now. He lived a life of rebellion and loss and transformed that to a life led by gratitude. This success comes from being a product of the methodology that he created called The Anatomy of Transformation. His story not only inspires, it educates and empowers the audience to take immediate action. The system he will be sharing with you today has been proven for over 30 years to get results as dramatic as a 93% growth in revenue in 12 months for one client, 307% growth in revenues in 36 months for another, and helping a third client become one of the top 10 fastest growing companies. So please welcome Willard Barth.
Hello, ladies. Glad to see all of you.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Hi there.
So Willard, I don't know if you want to add anything into that path. I know I kind of gave like a kind of brief, but not too many specifics. So if you want to fill in a few of the blanks for us, I think people would love to know.
I'm not sure what to fill in on that one. You did.
Well, I know you went through those tough times and turned that around. So I would love to hear a little bit about your life and what led you to the Anatomy of Transformation.
Sure. One of the major turning points for me actually happened when I was 8 years old. 8 years old, I lost my left leg to bone cancer. This was 1973. So interestingly, as I've done many presentations, I actually researched to see what the percentage of children were with bone cancer in 1973. They hadn't even started tracking the percentages of cancer in adults, let alone in children at that point. So it was one of those points in time where you didn't know what cancer was. You just all of a sudden were waking up and going, okay, they're telling me that they don't amputate my leg, I'm going to die. 8-year-old kids don't die. But it definitely impacted me in ways that I hadn't even thought about. It put me on 2 very diverse paths. One, I became this mega achiever. Anything that I even thought that people would say, oh, you can't do that, I was like, yes, I can. So started making my living as a professional musician at 15 years old. I was the first licensed amputee motorcyclist in Pennsylvania. I lettered in junior high school football. I lettered in junior high school wrestling, in high school football as a place kicker of all things, and had my first business when I was 19 years old. So to the outside world, it looked like everything was great. But inside, there was all of this headspace that was screwed up because I was constantly walking around with the question of why me? And if you ask a question, you get an answer. If you ask a bad question, you get a bad answer. So everything I came up with for why me was I was defective, that God hated me, that I wasn't worthy of love or happiness, that I was such a bad person that it was dangerous for other people to be around me. So I started drinking and using drugs heavily at 13 years old. Started riding with a biker gang when I was 16. I got my first arrest for drunk driving when I was 19 years old. And I say first because within the next 12 months, I got 4 more arrested for driving under the influence. 20 years old, I was facing 5 to 8 years in jail, and I ended up doing a total of 12 months. So again, took me on 2 very diverse paths. After getting out of jail, I woke up one morning and was pretty much saying to myself, how did I get here? This isn't the life that I imagined for living when I was a child. And it was at that point that conscious transformation happened. There's a saying that I use often, which is change is inevitable. Everything changes. It happens without warning. Everything around us changes. Growth is optional because a lot of times when the change happens, people want to stay with the way things were and they'll fight to stay there. Transformation is when you actually make a conscious choice that's saying, okay, here's where I am. There's where I want to be. How do I get there? And when I made that decision, I had realized that it was the decisions I made and the actions that I took that had gotten me to the place that I was, which I didn't like. I was homeless. I had $40 to my name. I was mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and financially destroyed based on these things. And by realizing that I was responsible, my choices, my actions, then I was able to go, well, if I made those decisions and took those actions to get here, then I can make new decisions and take new actions that'll get me somewhere else. And as Linda alluded to, that ended up being, it's actually now coming up on a 34-year journey of consciously choosing who I am deciding to be so that I do things differently that let me have the results that I want to have. And since then, the transformation in my life has been amazing. She's mentioned about the CD that I released, the performances with Les Paul, my entertainment company that I started. I got to work with some of the most respected people in the business, Paul McCartney's publishing label. I got to work with Don McLean, the guy who American Pie, that song. Well, I got to work with his manager. I worked with one of Led Zeppelin's producers, one of their engineers, Sid Bernstein, the guy who brought the Beatles to America. I worked with him on a project. So there were those things. And then I've been doing business consulting and professional peak performance for individuals now for 24 years. And I had an invitation to actually do a business proposal for a $2.5 billion real estate project. So it was from a life of total devastation to one that I never could have imagined. And I always like to share when I'm doing these, the greatest gift that's happened in that transformation is I now have a 29-year-old daughter who never saw me under the influence of alcohol or drugs. And my daughter and son-in-law have blessed me with 2 granddaughters that, I never would have imagined having that experience in my life. So, Linda, I hope that more clear picture of the transformations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's quite an extraordinary life that you have led. And, against a lot of odds that could take people down, you transformed and made the most out of everything in your life, which is just really impressive. So that leads me to my first question.
Okay.
So, you say that anyone can transform. And I think all of us feel some level of what you were describing earlier. I'm not worthy. Maybe God doesn't like me. Like I didn't have the same opportunities, or they've got it easier than I do, or something like that. And, and using your framework, you say that anyone can transform. So how can you be certain of that?
One of my mentors, when I first was discussing putting the anatomy of transformation together, I had taken time off of the road and off of other than working with my clients, taking time off of the road to take care of my older mother. And I was getting ready to go back out and speak. And one of my mentors said, look, there's a lot of people who've overcome X, Y, and Z in their lives, but I don't know many people who've overcome all of those things. How did you do it? What was the organizing principle? And I started looking at the pattern. What was it that I was doing every time? But I didn't want it just to be what my journey was. So then I started talking to everybody I knew who was successful in business and entertainment, all these areas. And I saw that it was a repetitive 7 phases that everybody went through. And it just made sense as it was going. And when I explain it to people, it's kind of like a light bulb that comes off. There are simply 7 phases that everyone goes through in transformation. But the challenge is, again, most people aren't aware. When you become aware, then you can start making the choice to consciously go through. Now, the reason I call them phases is there's a couple of points that they aren't steps that you can actively take. The first phase is what I call ignorance. And it's the fact of we don't know that we don't know. Either we don't know that the current actions that we're doing are harming us and others, or it's not just a negative side to transformation. Sometimes it's that we don't know that there's a new possibility. You know, I grew up in a neighborhood, in a family where I was brought up to believe that doctors' children became doctors, factory workers' children became factory workers. Didn't realize that you could choose what you wanted to do with your life. You know, when somebody brought up the idea of being an entrepreneur, it's like, oh, can't do that. Only business owners' kids become business owners. So it's not always about negative things that are going on in your life that lead to transformation. It might be that you're going along in your day-to-day activities, and all of a sudden you meet somebody and you have a conversation. They say, well, you seem to have a great voice. Have you ever thought about doing voiceover work? And going, voiceover work, I never would have even considered that. You've now moved from ignorance into phase 2, which is what I call awareness. Awareness is when either you've caused enough pain or you feel enough pain from the thing that you're doing that says, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Or just somebody opened you up to a new possibility that you never imagined before. Now, awareness does not mean that you're going to move to transformation. A lot of times awareness becomes the story that people use to stay in that place. Oh, well, I can never do that because of my upbringing. I could never do that because I'm too old. I could never do that. You know, the awareness becomes a crutch that they lean on. Transformation begins when you move to phase 3, which is taking responsibility. And again, bad stuff in your life, take responsibility for it. Stop blaming other people and go, it's the decisions you made, the actions you took, or even the good stuff. You know, I mean, Linda, as you pointed out, sometimes people are saying, oh, you've gone through so much stuff. And then they actually try and play off that they can't transform because their life hasn't been hard.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that before, for sure.
It's like, recognize that you can take responsibility for the good things in your life too, because a lot of times people go, oh, it was my parents. Oh, I was lucky. No, you were presented an opportunity. You made a decision. You took the action. If you didn't, you wouldn't be at that place. And when you start giving yourself the reference points and say, you know what, it was my decisions. I did take the actions. Now you're able to go, well, who do I want to become? What are the decisions and the actions I'm going to take moving forward? So really phase 3 is where the work begins. Then you move to phase 4, which is immersing yourself in the process. Are you going to try? Are you going to just attempt it? Or are you really going to dive in deeply and do whatever it takes to make it happen? And that's where, you know, Linda mentioned earlier about some of the accountability things that are going on. I don't believe in the word try. I think it should be removed. I think tries are an excuse that we set up for ourselves, that when we really aren't committed, we say, I tried. No, you didn't. There's a big difference. Then the 5th phase, and this, Linda, sorry, it took a little while to get there. This to me is what proves that you're able to do it. Phase 5 is about interdependence. Nobody succeeds on their own. The idea is to be able to find other people. I call it interdependence. Find other people who have walked the path before you and recognize that they can help you succeed on your journey. Because when you try and do it by yourself, you just end up beating your head on a wall, and you either reinforce that limiting belief you had before that says, see, I couldn't do it. I knew I couldn't do it. Or you just give up because you don't see that the way to success is 3 steps to the left or the right. So interdependence, the thing that allows everybody to succeed is find not just one person, but other people who are getting the result that you're looking for. Pick their brains, find out how did they overcome the obstacles, learn how to compress time on that journey, because that way you don't have to make the same mistakes that they did. Then we move back into phases that you really don't have control over, but they're part of the transformation. Phase 6 is what I call ownership, where I've studied from Kate and I've learned from Rhonda and I've learned from Linda and I've read books and all that stuff. And then I've melded it into the uniqueness that goes along with my own journey. Now it's a part of my identity. I own it. And then phase 7, again, one that's not an actual step, it just happens, is phase 7 is now you are influencing others. And it doesn't mean you have to become a coach or a teacher or a trainer. It just means that based on your journey, the fact that you went from where you were to where you are, other people see that and go, you know what? If she can do it, maybe I can too. So that is the thing. And how I know it works is every human being that I've talked to, whether it's learning to play piano or run a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar business, they've all gone through every one of those phases to get from where they were to where they are.
That's good stuff.
It's really good stuff. I know, like, I can do that.
Even in our conversation, as we were, just getting ready for our conversation, we talked about change and transformation. And boy, it ran the gamut in the room here. People are like, oh, I hate change. And what is it about human nature that we fear it or we hate it? I mean, maybe you've already kind of answered it in your 7 steps, but I don't know. What is it in the human animal that makes us adverse to change?
There's only 2 things that prevent people from transforming or changing. One is fear, and the other is limiting beliefs. Yeah. What the reason so many people resist change is because they're scared that they're going to look bad. They're scared they're not going to do it right. They're scared that they're going to fail and things will be worse than they are now. There's some sort of fear that keeps them holding on to where they currently are. Or these, what we refer to in the personal development world as limiting belief systems. A belief is just something that you have chosen to accept as being true. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. It's just your choice. And if you choose to believe something that does not support you in moving forward, then it limits you. And again, between every phase, between ignorance and awareness and taking responsibility, every one of those, when I'm working with somebody one-on-one, we get them to identify what phase are they hung up on right now. Okay, great. Now, what's the limiting belief or the fear that's keeping you there? Well, I can't because I don't know how. The way you identify limiting belief is that phrase, I can't because fill in the blank. Whatever comes after, I can't because, whatever that fill in the blank spot is, that's your limiting belief. And people have so many of those. Can't, again, because I'm too old. I can't because I'm too young. I can't because I don't have enough money. I can't because I have too much money. Anything that you have, you can use either as a supportive, empowering belief, or you can flip it around to where it holds you to where you are. So the shortest answer to, why people struggle with change is because one of the greatest fears, I believe, is the fear of the unknown. And change means I don't know what's on the other side of that road. I don't know what's on the other side of this line. I have no idea whether I'm going to enjoy it or not. Right now, things may be bad. They may be painful, but I'm surviving through it. What happens if I make this choice and it gets worse?
Yeah. So change is inevitable. And change brings opportunities, and still you got to get your head right. Even if you can accept those 2 things, you do have to address what are the things that you're saying to yourself, or what are those limiting beliefs that are keeping you from moving forward or realizing your dreams or actualizing whatever it is you envision for yourself. I think that's all really helpful information. Good for our listeners, good for us to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you can, as you said earlier, put yourself in community with other people who are, have similar dreams or ambitions, it makes it easier to go through those phases. I would imagine as you're doing it together with other people, it gives you strength. It helps you stand up when the fears and the doubts start to seep in, because they will at every phase.
Sure.
If you have, your power team, right? Power team, it makes it much easier to go through. And I think that was part of what your accountability groups that you run. There's people, I didn't know anybody really starting it, and you become friends and you really are cheering each other on, and got that great system of accountability that's very, very powerful.
There's so many pieces to, again, what I refer to as phase 5, that interdependence. Again, a lot of times you're meeting people that you don't even know, but you start recognizing that people see the world differently. They see themselves differently. They see you differently. Because a lot of times the support group that you have around you doesn't support you in the way that truly supports you in getting to where you want to be. They want to support you by protecting you. They don't want to see you fail and get hurt. So they'll talk you out of your dreams. They'll talk you out of going for things. Well, I don't want you to get upset when it doesn't work out.
Right.
Whereas if you're getting around people that you're immersing yourself with, who they're also doing it, they're going to hold you up. But also, people do more to keep their word to others than they do to themselves. So if you put yourself with a group of people who are all striving to improve, you are going to raise your standards. That was the thing that Linda was referring to with the accountability group. We grouped them together with people. And actually, Linda helped me out tremendously by running one of those groups. And one of the things where the group of people had to report to her every day on what their progress was. How did you do on these things? Well, when you know that you're going to be communicating to somebody, reporting your progress, and that person is not going to go, oh, it's okay, don't feel bad. It's like, well, you committed to doing this and you said this. It's not about being a jerk about it. This is the thing when people ask me to be their accountability partner. First, I ask them if they're sure, because I am going to hold them accountable. Because I think so many people, they let people off when people slip on their standard, because they don't want to beat them up. They don't want to do anything, but they're not really helping that person get past their own fears, their own excuses, everything else. The only thing I will hold you accountable to is what you have expressed to me that you can do. Then if it comes down to you not doing it, it's because you chose not to do it. Now tell me why you chose not to do it so we can work on moving past that. Because if you buy into your own BS belief system, or you want to use the other part for it, you can do that too. You buy into your own stuff, you are never going to grow past that. But when you surround yourself with people who are working together for it, it really comes down to, who am I spending my time with? Are these people who are going to push me past what my comfort zone is? Because I want to stay in that comfort zone. I want to stay where I know things are. Like Kate was saying earlier, they don't want to change. They may say they want to change, but the actual work that has to be done to make that change, getting up earlier to go out and do my exercises, or staying up a little bit later to finish doing that piece of paperwork, I'm going to miss the rerun of The Big Bang Theory that I already saw 4 times, because that's what I do with my nights. So definitely surrounding yourself with people.
Yeah, truth talkers, but also people who understand that failure is, sometimes failure is good. It teaches you something, and teaches you what to avoid, or teaches you how, okay, that didn't work, but let me get creative and try another thing. And if that doesn't work, I'll try another thing. If it leads you to creativity, that's a good thing. And I think you're 100% correct that having the right team, awesome, around you to lift you up, support you, and also keep prodding you forward. That's true empowerment.
Yeah. And I just want to say too, that the thing that was really empowering for me being part of your accountability group, well, I'll just say a big gift you gave me in having me lead one, because I went into it feeling all my fears, like I'm not worthy. These people are really powerful. I mean, Willard attracts really powerful people. I'm like, what am I doing in this group? I shouldn't be in this group. Like, I don't have anything to offer. Right. And so when you're in a group of powerful people and they see the power in you, you're like, really? You see that in me? It's a very powerful experience having people recognize your power, even when you don't. So I think that's another layer of accountability that was amazing for that.
Absolutely.
I'm getting the signal that we're moving to this thing called the golden nugget, which we love. It's the segment, part of the segment where we
can't
ask.
be there already.
I know. We'll just have to have Willard back for another session. But if you could give our listeners and us a golden nugget, something that you either wish you knew at a younger point, or if something you learned from your life experience that helps people at this moment of transition or reinvention that will help them transform.
Well, it's interesting, Kate, because there's something you said a moment ago that I wanted to tie on to, and I think it becomes the golden nugget in this. And you talked about the failure part of things. You know, the transformation from back when I made that decision to move forward till now. When people hear the overarching story, I think a lot of people think it was just this upward trajectory. And that's not the case. I failed a lot on that journey, but I failed smaller and won bigger because I surrounded myself with people who, when I had to fail, would say, here's how you get past it. Here's how you dig yourself out of it. I've been homeless 4 times in my life, and 3 of them were after I stopped drinking. And it was on this journey. And some of them were intentional choices. And people will go, who would choose to be homeless? It was like, I can stay doing a job that I don't like that's paying me some bills, or I can immerse myself in building my own career. And it may mean that I need to tighten up some of my finances and stay on friends' couches and do some of these other things to do it. Elon Musk sold PayPal for 140, whatever it was, million or whatever it was. And he was still sleeping on other people's couches because he took all of that money and put it back into his next project. So what people look at as failure, it's just that part of going, what I was doing hasn't gotten me to where I want to be yet. What do I need to adjust to get there? So I think the golden nugget is to learn to embrace I don't even like them as being shortcomings. It's opportunities to learn. If you're doing something and you haven't gotten the result yet, you've gotten an opportunity to refocus, redirect, take another approach to get the result that you have. So I think the golden nugget is that anything that you deem as a failure needs to be looked at with the question of, what can I learn from this? What can I improve? What can I improve? And how can I make sure I don't do the same thing again?
Mm-hmm. I know our audience consists of many people who are doing their next season of life, or they're trying to live their dream or launch a business or be the creative they were meant to be in the world, and know that that path is paved with experiences that are messy. And so there's just so much wisdom in that. Thank you for sharing. And I am going to have us kind of come to the ending piece of things by asking about you and what's next for you. What's your next great thing that you can share with our audience?
Well, I shared before we started recording that part of my next chapter is that 3.5 years ago, I got rid of my stick and bricks location. And I've been traveling around the country for the past 3.5 years in a 40-foot motorhome, just seeing some of the breathtaking sights, meeting amazing people, creating new memories. Going to be continuing doing that. And as for the next chapter of things, I just did my first TED Talk this past Monday. And I do know that that's going to open up a lot more doors for more speaking engagements. I have launched a couple of new programs to help people, one with their personal improvement with the Anatomy of Transformation, and another with a business-specific program. So my next chapter is really continuing to do this, but doing it on the road. I mean, it used to be living out of suitcases, airplanes, and hotels. Now I take my home with me wherever I go, and just find the opportunities, whether it's one person in a coffee shop or whether it's 10,000 people at an event. Just continue to find opportunities to help people discover their true potential, because I think that's really what we all are here to do in whatever way we're doing it, is to come together to co-create moments that make life better for each other.
Fantastic. Wow. So I think your RV is headed south, but can you point it north and come to Boston sometime soon?
When things warm back up, I'd be happy.
No, that's what everybody
want to come
says.
in the winter? It's beautiful here in the winter.
I've been there in the winter. Yes, it is beautiful in the winter. And I'm on my way to Florida. So.
Well, that was
amazing. Yes. Well,
what a way to end.
Oh, what a way to end. And thank you, Willard, so much for joining us today. We're just really grateful to have this conversation with you, really grateful for your incredible wisdom and your energy and just your beautiful being. And letting us know that we have the opportunity to choose transformation, and you have the blueprint to help us realize our dreams. And I happen to be very fortunate to have Willard's book, The Anatomy of Transformation. And I'm really special because it's also personally signed. So very exciting. So thank you so much, Willard. Thank you.
And I know folks are going to want to hear more about you and learn more about you. So they can do that at willardbarth.com and on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter.
Awesome. So I want the book, and I will take a deeper dive into those 7 phases. Thank you so much for being with us. And a special thanks to Kathy Carswell, our production team, for making this all possible.
And so it is left for me to say, go forth, be brave, live well, and do good, because it's Act 2. You're on.
Act 2 You're On was brought to you by Act 2 Share Our Stage.
You can find us at a2yo.com and also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please listen and subscribe wherever you find your podcast. You can support us using Patreon. Thanks for listening.